Another picture here. Brandon's here. Good morning.
Hi, good morning. How are you?
You're down on the end there.
They have a trick there.
Oh, all right.
Try and make you walk.
All right. All right, good morning. This is the April 8th, 2025 Cottage Grove City Council, well, it's the EDA meeting, I almost said City Council meeting, which the Economic Development Authority meeting, which I'm calling to order. Our first order of our business today is the Pledge of Allegiance, so please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Is Alexa, you doing the roll?
Yes,
All right.
I am. Yep. EDA member Scott.
Here?
EDA member Cheetah.
Here.
EDA member John Baptiste.
Here.
EDA member Kambata. EDA member Latak.
Here.
EDA vice president Olson. And EDA president Bealey.
Here. Thank you. So next on our agenda, and really this is the only thing we're truly voting on tonight, is the approval of the minutes. And so what we're looking for, unless there's any changes or corrections, motion and a second to approve the 2/11/2025 Economic Development and CVB meeting minutes.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes from the last meeting.
All right. I didn't hear did the second. Okay. So we had a first motion by Scott, second by Cheetah. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Then we'll move on to number 5, which is business items. And the first one is a plaque presentation. And I'm going to put my cheaters on here because we do have 2 members that have recently went off the EDA. And one of those members is here this morning to that we get to recognize him. And so what I thought I would do is, and what's interesting in this case is these are, both these members were on a little bit longer due to COVID. And so the normal term kind of got extended for a few extra years because of what was going on with COVID. So I thought I would read a little bit about Dan Meyer and then Chris Carey, who's not here this morning. Both served on the Economic Development Authority board from June 2017 to February of 2025. And so in their 8 years of service on the EDA board, the city did see tremendous changes in which they played obviously a key role. These changes include many new businesses locating in the city, including Pizza Ranch, Culver's, Caribou Coffee, Bride and Jewel, Hy-Vee, Junction 70, Muddy Cow, McDonald's, TJ Maxx, Home Goods, Ulta Beauty, Salons by JC, and many more. And as you can tell, they were here through all of that. That was pretty amazing. They also assisted in attracting new businesses to the city's business park, including Airgas, North Point, RJ Schinner, Lumberman's, Hohenstein's, and now most recently, Quick Trip. And they also assisted others in their growth and expansion efforts, including the expansions of Renewal by Anderson, Van Meter, Lumberman's, and Up North Plastics. These changes also added billions, literally, in taxable value to the city's tax base. In addition, helping the business to secure large grants from the state via the Minnesota Investment and Job Creation Fund, which helped them expand and stay in the city rather than relocating either outside of the city or to a different state. During their service, we also undertook a hotel market feasibility study, a housing study, a small area plan now known as the Innovation Village, a stadium feasibility study, and a CVB, which is the Convention Visitors Bureau Strategic Tourism Plan, and funded a historical painting of the city, which we in turn used to create a city puzzle in partnership with Dowdle Studios. All of these strategic plans and projects help guide the city forward, and will continue to do so in the foreseeable future. Housing was also important to the EDA, and during their tenure, we had the Legends, Norris Square, Grove 80, Trellis, which is Blue Stem, and many other multifamily complexes that were built in the city. These projects allowed the city to grow as well as allowed many seniors to be able to stay within our city. Dan and Chris's determination helped the city grow in a responsible and sustainable manner was simply outstanding. So I just wanted to say on behalf of myself and the city council, and I'm sure all the rest of us up here on the EDA, we want to extend our sincere appreciation for your outstanding service as an EDA board member and obviously to the city. And so with that, you know, it's interesting. I don't think you realize, Dan, I know I don't. You kind of look back at the years you've been doing stuff, and then when you start seeing the list of all the things that you help bring or support within the city, you kind of go, whoa, at least I do. Kind of go, wow, there was a lot happening in those, 8 years that you're on the EDA. So what I'd like to do is I'm going to have you come up, and I'm going to come down in front and I'm going to present you with the plaque. So I'll read it. It just says, presented to Dan Myers in appreciation of your dedicated service to the City of Cottage Economic Development Authority. And again, the extended term, June 2017 through February 2025. So there you go.
Thank you guys so much. You guys
And now you get to go back and try to figure out what's going on nationally with all the, I kind of figured. See you, Dan. All right. That's always fun to be able to do that. All right. So next on our agenda this morning is the Maxfield Research Housing Study. And obviously, we're going to get a presentation in this case. And I believe, G, you're going to kick us off, or?
Mary's gonna come on up. Mary
Okay.
Bujold is with Maxfield Research, and we hired them to do the housing study, and now she's here today to present it to you.
Fantastic. Welcome, Mary.
Thank you. Chair Bailey and Commissioners, it's my pleasure to be here this morning to briefly present the key findings from the housing analysis. I know that I'm sure you've seen the larger document, which is quite extensive, and perhaps you haven't had a chance to get through it all at this point, but that's fine. Here. Oh, sorry.
There you go.
Thank you. So the project scope was to provide an analysis of housing needs for the city, and then to provide a guide and framework to consider key housing priorities and current housing gaps. The deliverables, short and long-term housing needs, and recommendations to guide future housing development. The data collection occurred primarily during the second and third quarters of 2024. A draft was delivered in October of 2024, and now the presentations have occurred in March and April of this year. Oh, sorry. So looking a little bit at the primary market area, so we assess that, well, first of all, when we draw a primary market area, it's with the understanding that housing demand is actually somewhat fluid, and especially so in the Twin Cities metro area. We have people moving quite a bit between different communities, and we also, in addition to that, within the identification of a primary market area, there will always be some demand that comes from outside of that area, which is this 30% of demand that will come from outside the area. Then so 70% of the demand we are identifying as being potentially generated from Cottage Grove, Woodbury, Newport, St. Paul Park, Great Cloud Island Township, Denmark Township, and Hastings. And then what we do with that is then we look at within that larger primary market area and the projected growth, what proportion of the demand would be capturable directly by the city of Cottage Grove. And within that, we look at the additional areas in the other communities, what their projected growth is going to be, what their land areas are, and then we assess and analyze where the potential demand for certain types of housing products would be capturable by the city. So Cottage Grove is definitely growing, but at a decelerating pace. And I just want to mention too that that's not unusual. So what we're seeing across the Twin Cities metro area, and especially in communities that are primarily fully developed, although Cottage Grove is not at that point yet, is that we are starting to see a slowdown in terms of population growth in many communities. And we're also starting to see, even though we're seeing household growth pretty much keep pace, and we're still seeing that decelerating pace from this mid area when development really zoomed in the Twin Cities. So Cottage Grove experienced its greatest growth between 1960 and 70, and then they had a second fairly substantial growth spurt between 1990 and 2000. Since 2000, growth has been steady, but at a decelerating pace, so decelerating rate of growth, consistent with most other expanding metro area suburban cities. So for sale home prices continue to climb. Despite a modest downturn in for sale median home prices, they have generally continued to rise. We are seeing this throughout the Twin Cities metro area. We're seeing it throughout the state of Minnesota, the upper Midwest, as well as across the nation. Price increases have knocked out some entry-level buyers. Move-up buyers are largely staying put because many move-up buyers took advantage of those very low mortgage interest rates, and so they're just holding steady. New construction is suppressed because of a slowdown in demand and supply chain challenges. Accordingly, too, land prices have not decreased, which further exacerbates this problem. So we're seeing challenges in terms of land costs throughout the market. I'm working with a number of different developers, primarily multifamily developers, and they are definitely not seeing land prices decrease. So that's kind of compressing their margins and their ability to be able to make their numbers work. Many are seeking additional equity and capital stack so that they can reduce their reliance on mortgage lending. So average rents in the square foot, average rent per square foot among market rate rental properties in the PMA. So that is growing as well. There was a dearth of new apartment construction in the 1990s and 2000s, which then led to a substantial increase in multifamily development beginning in the 2010s. An even greater number of units have opened recently, and despite this inflation, we are still seeing a lot of interest among multifamily developers in developing additional units, primarily because we're still having a lot of difficulty moving people into that for sale market. So their alternative is to rent at least for a period of time or for a longer term. So even though the new multifamily construction has slowed, demand still remains strong, and we are seeing very good absorption among properties that have recently opened. So rent per square foot, affordable rental properties and rents. So we are seeing rent levels are lower for affordable rental units, but I will mention too that as it's based on a kind of benchmark format. So as rents rise in the market overall among market rate properties, those rents that are even affordable are still also rising. And that's predicated, of course, on incomes rising. I think what we are seeing too is even though these rents are more affordable than traditional market rate, we are seeing some households become increasingly cost burdened, even with affordable rental properties. So that a portion of households are even having to pay a higher proportion of their income for rent, even at an affordable property. So there's definitely a highly competitive funding process for tax credits and a need for multiple funding layers, which also hampers new development. So as much as we would like to see more affordable units come into the market, the resources and the process for getting those units into the market has become increasingly difficult. As rental rates climb, affordable rents also escalate, which I mentioned, which may create challenges to fill these units at the higher rents. So general occupancy housing demand. So demand projected for owned housing, detached and attached. There's strong demand for market rate rental housing. There is a need for all housing products across the spectrum. So affordable housing is the most difficult to develop, whether that be that middle market tax credit affordable housing or deep subsidy housing, due to high development costs and significant financial gaps. And these demand figures were generated for 2024 to 2035. There also were separated out between this first 6-year increment, 2024 to 2030, and then 2030 to 2035. So senior housing demand. Demand for senior housing will continue to increase over the next 20 years, largely due to the aging of the baby boomers. Assisted living and memory care are still recovering from the pandemic, but I would say to you that we are seeing increased demand for assisted living and memory care from the market. What is creating some significant problems is there are definitely labor shortages among caregivers. And so we are seeing all senior housing, service-enhanced senior housing developments continually trying to hire labor to be able to serve the population which they have or are trying to attract. We still do have some facilities, especially among the memory care components, where they are not able to utilize all of their beds, even though there's demand for that, again, because they do not have the proper labor ratios to be able to care for these individuals. And we believe that that is going to continue, especially in the short term, potentially in the long term, and it will negatively impact, again, this ability to satisfy the demand in these service levels. So why is the entry level and middle market missing? Well, there's a lot of different reasons for that. So some of it is zoning regulations, some of it is density requirements, some is design and material requirements, permit and impact fees, infrastructure costs, building code changes, and those building code changes don't necessarily always occur at the regional or local level. They are also impacted by the state. And we've seen different state regulations come down that have significantly impacted building in different areas of our state. Some of those have been reversed, but others, I think, it's important for us to consider how those building code regulations and requirements may hamper our ability to provide the housing that we need to serve our residents and also just in general people in our state. We have increasing labor and material costs. Land acquisition costs are also increasing. We have financing challenges for smaller developers and builders. So especially during the Great Recession, we lost quite a few of our smaller builders. We are trying to attract national builders to Minnesota. That has occurred to a modest degree, but we really need more national builders to consider the Twin Cities and Minnesota as a place to develop. Lenders are tightening underwriting standards. Bank regulation is increasing with some bank failures, and we definitely need economies of scale. So key takeaways: population and household growth was strong last decade. There is some increase in family households, but not enough to overshadow those without children and singles living alone. So again, this speaks a little bit to the ratio between population growth and household growth. So we are seeing strong percentage growth in households, largely because we are seeing shrinking household sizes. And so that we still have a definite need and demand for housing to house those households that are being created, even though many times those households have fewer people. Cottage Grove's near-term growth is led primarily by the millennials and baby boomers, resulting in demand for housing products at opposite ends of the spectrum, although there is some overlap in market rate rental housing and for-sale townhomes. Growth in the 65-plus cohort will dominate over the next 15 to 20 years, so what housing products are needed? So early on, I think a lot of developers and the general overall market thought, well, we'll just develop senior housing, and that will kind of take care of this aging 65-plus group. Well, over time, what we've seen is, especially among that younger group, they are really not ready for senior housing. So that perspective of what senior housing is and what products are attractive to this group has started to really shift. And so again, we're starting to see that idea of like more the detached villa, the twin home, the cottage style home, and more independent products be attractive as this group starts to age. The average age for assisted living and memory care has now pushed well into the early to mid 80s for people, if they even move into that product at all. So early on, so right now in terms of a market penetration for senior housing in the Twin Cities, we're probably at somewhere around 17 to 18% of that age 65 plus market, which is still a relatively small proportion of our overall 65 plus age group, which means that there's a lot of people in their traditional single family homes. There's a lot of people kind of looking for that interim product. For sale and rental housing will combine to increase the housing stock in Cottage Grove. As low-density land supplies decrease, it will be important to target locations for higher density development. For senior housing, active adult products, both rental and for sale, will continue to be popular. High home prices enable seniors to sell and relocate to more convenient housing products. So between 2024 and 2030, demand is estimated for about 1,900 for sale units, 933 rental units, and about 1,023 senior units among all service levels, which is, that's a pretty diverse product group. But I will tell you that the majority of that demand is for active adult product, whether that be for sale or rental. The market continues to be challenged as to how to bring needed products to the market, innovation and creativity, and not business as usual. And that's the presentation.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Mary. And it's kind of interesting because, you know, as obviously the mayor and elected, what I find kind of funny is, you know, over the last, I don't know, 5, 6 years, so to speak, maybe a little longer, some people in the community think we're growing way too fast. And it's funny because you look at your data and it says we're kind of, and our intent has always been to be, you know, careful with how we grow. But and you use the word decrease or suppressed, if you will, with regards to how we've been growing. My one question, and I'll open it up for the EDA here for any questions that they might have. So when you're seeing that, it does, at least it appears to me too, that I hear from a lot of individuals that want to move out of maybe a bigger single family home, and they want to go into like a villa. Like you said, they don't necessarily want to get into a senior component, if you will. And so villas or one levels, whatever, seem to be the thing that everybody's looking for. The challenge I'm hearing, and I don't know if you want to speak to it, is when they want to do that, they want to be able to go into from this house to this house and not have any debt. In other words, it's just, they took the money they made here and they put it into here, and if anything, maybe they have a little extra, which what we're hearing, at least, what I'm hearing, that is not happening. Are you seeing that as part of the information that you've found?
Yeah, so that is an extremely, especially right now, that's an extremely challenging situation. And the primary reason for that is when we're looking at the villa developments. So largely those lot sizes right now for most villa developments have been between that 50-foot and 55-foot wide lot. So we are seeing some that have been pushed down to maybe as low as about 42 or 40. That's getting a little skinny on that traditional villa style. But the cost to put those on the market, what we're seeing is most of those units traditionally in the villa style are in that $450,000 to $500,000 range. And when a senior is selling their home maybe in that like $300,000 to $350,000, they're seeing that price gap. And we're seeing that across the market. It's maybe they are able to opt for a twin home, but even so, we're seeing twin homes even come on the market at much higher prices. What we aren't seeing in the market that we were seeing, I would say, just pre-Great Recession, is we were seeing some developers put in what we call kind of a cottage style or quad style concept, where we had 4 units on a lot or a pad, and they each had an attached wall. Now, that is not necessarily what the overall market ideally prefers, but when those units were developed, they sold like hotcakes because they were in that kind of lower price point where somebody could sell their home and move into that with almost on an equal to equal basis. And I've tried to be promoting that a little bit, but it hasn't so far kind of taken off where developers or builders have kind of grasped onto that yet, that maybe they might want to try that product in the market. I think we can kind of keep encouraging that because it is harder. There are not all that many households that can sell their home and then suddenly buy a $500,000 or $550,000 or more detached villa. So I totally understand what you're saying. It is occurring, it is a challenge. And I think especially too in this period, even though seniors are able to get top dollar for their homes, it is hard to make that bridge financially in terms of, as you said, and then have no debt.
I'll have one more question, then I promise I'll turn it over to these guys. You were commenting about trying to get more national builders, if you will. And obviously, we've got like Lennar and D.R.
Yes.
Horton and those out here. Is there somebody, and I guess I really don't know, is there somebody very large out there or more large out in the
So David Weekley has recently been seriously looking at entering this market. They are a very large national home builder, and we've had some conversations with them. They are eyeing different markets here in the Twin Cities and in terms of coming in and starting to do development here.
Okay.
There are 1 or 2 others I can, go back and take a look to, and maybe I can just provide the names of those as well.
Okay, I appreciate that, thank you.
Yeah, sure, no problem.
EDA, EDA member Kambata.
Yeah.
You'd cited that labor was an issue, land acquisition was an issue. Are you getting any feedback from any of the builders on how market volatility related to imported materials such as lumber is going to have an effect on the market?
Well, it's a little early, but because things have been happening so rapidly. But I will tell you that will affect our situation. I frankly, I am concerned. I am concerned because moving into this current situation, we have had significant demand and need for housing. Have been for about 8 to 10 years behind the 8 ball in terms of developing enough housing to be able to meet the demand, not only here in the Twin Cities, but across the country. And I'm very concerned about our ability to be able to maintain some kind of modest or reasonable cost balances in terms of being able to provide housing products that people can afford. I'm not sure where all this will level out. I guess my hope is that even with the proposed tariffs that we have, that eventually cooler heads will prevail and that will roll some of those back once we start to see the economic results in our market. Because we can, at this point, I believe we can ill afford to fall further behind in terms of providing needed housing.
Thank you.
Okay. Any questions on here? Mr. EDA Member Cheetah.
Yeah, thank you. So I guess following up on what the mayor was saying about national builders, is there a reason why we're not seeing as many national builders in the Twin Cities and the Minnesota market?
So I will say to you that over time, what we have seen in our market, and this is not necessarily, we've seen periods where national builders and national developers have come to the Twin Cities. And they've stayed here for potentially a period of time. And then they tend to move out of the Twin Cities or out of Minnesota, primarily the Twin Cities. Some of that is because our market grows. It grows at a very steady pace, and it grows at, and we tend to maintain good levels of occupancy, especially in our multifamily units. But what a lot of national builders are looking for is they're looking for those, what I would kind of say, super growth markets. So they're looking for the much larger markets like the Austin market or North Carolina market or Tennessee, where growth is consistently occurring at large double-digit rates. So they tend to follow, even though I think it's, we have, like I said, we have been able to secure and maintain some, like Pulte, Lennar. They have been in our markets for many years, but attracting, especially too, we've looked at larger multifamily developers come into this market, and they stay for just kind of about 5 or 6 years, and then inevitably we see them go elsewhere. As I said, we have a very solid and steady market, but we don't have sometimes that larger growth spurt that they're really looking for. We actually have the other market that is, of course, attracting a lot of development is Phoenix, the Phoenix market in Arizona, which is, exploding. Let's just say it's exploding.
Yes, Mr. Baptiste, EDA Member Baptiste.
Yeah, so my question is, obviously we know what we have and we know what we don't have. We don't have explosive growth, but we do have steady growth.
Yes.
Would that be attractive to more of a regional player? And my second part to that question is the reason why we're going after the national builders, is it because they provide more economies of scale and could produce housing at a lower rate? Or if we went after the regional players that, could be okay with the steady growth that we have and not, chasing double digits, could they still produce at the same level that those national players are?
So that's a very good question, and I thank you for that. So I would say to you that national builders do have some economies of scale, primarily in terms of their buying capabilities. Once they get in this market, though, they are subject to pretty much the same regulations and cost structures in terms of development costs and land pricing that other builders are subject to. So I think that the players that have been in this market for a long time, they're very solid. And I would say that I think that we have a lot of very good builders here that we would still want to court them. I think that sometimes what happens is, I think the difference really sometimes is that sometimes national builders coming in, they bring a little bit of innovation and creativity that sometimes our local regional builders, have become comfortable. It's like, oh, we've been building here for a while, we really know it works. It's kind of, we just want to kind of stay in that, niche versus being challenged a little bit by, oh, here's somebody coming in that's going to give us a little bit of a run for our money because they're bringing in something that's new or a little different. So I think I would, while I really appreciate that we have really good, solid regional builders here, I think that trying to attract that national builder gives us a little bit more of an edge in trying to bring in some products maybe that we haven't thought about before.
EDA Member Cheetah.
Yeah, and you had mentioned like that the builders are still subject to the same local regulations here. I guess, and as I look at both city and state government, that's the number one thing we can control. I mean, we can't control the price of land and lumber from up here. So I guess as we're looking at expanding housing opportunities, what are some of the things both City of Cottage Grove and Washington County and even the state of Minnesota can be doing to roll back regulations or look at different things, whether it's zoning policies or what have you, to really unleash growth without having to pour a bunch of taxpayer dollars into it?
So I think, so a lot of it really has to do, I guess, with, again, as you said, kind of local zoning regulations and density requirements. Sometimes it has to do with restrictions on types of materials being used or even the lot sizes, minimum lot sizes. And so I think, to be sensitive, especially when we're trying to develop products that aren't at the entire upper end of the spectrum, look at opportunities and ways that we can shift or adjust some of those previous criteria and regulations to be able to encourage, again, those economies of scale. I think in the market, in the market, what we're seeing is we're definitely seeing that we have essentially almost no entry-level housing. But in order to build that, we really do need to look at opportunities and options for products that we may have considered developing or were developed like many years ago. And by that I mean a creative smaller rambler or a creative 1.5-story expansion bungalow. So getting people into a product that they can grow with. I mean, those homes still remain popular in the market today. I mean, when we look at people who are looking for reasonable and affordable housing, I mean, especially in in communities like Cottage Grove or even Roseville, I mean, those products sell right away. It's not that people don't want to live in them. They do. I mean, granted, and those houses may be older, but what if we developed something like that was brand new? I mean, one of the things that we always see in the market is entry-level buyers kind of push back sometimes because they don't want to do a lot of sweat equity. So they don't want to go in and have to redevelop the entire home when they move in. Well, if we could figure out a way to develop products that were brand new, where they could move in, and even if they did pay just a little bit more for those products, maybe not the top level, everything would be new. So they would at least have a period of time where they didn't have to start buying the home and then investing a lot of money in redoing it. And it potentially would offer them, if they needed to add on, they could add on to that home as their family grows.
Yeah, fair enough. I really appreciate that. I'll let others ask questions.
Okay. EDA Member Letuck.
Yeah. So regarding senior housing, regarding senior housing living, since there will be a demand over the next 20 years, it seems like that pressure will keep the demand, but then also keep that price higher where they're not able to move laterally without debt. What are your thoughts on kind of condo-style living with amenities?
So I would say that I think condo style can work as long as it isn't necessarily in a traditional three-story apartment building. So you can develop a condominium product that is like a townhome style product that is actually a condo. It's not a townhome. I think the biggest issue that we see there, though, is if that product is going to be developed, it still needs to be that single-level living. We've really had there is some demand for that. I think we've still had a little bit of a pushback on that kind of quote-unquote condo, especially in that apartment-style building type of situation. And I think it's primarily because condominium has gotten a little bit of a bad name. I will say senior cooperatives have been extremely popular, and they're still popular. I mean, we have waiting lists at most of the cooperative developments that exist in the Twin Cities. And I would say that's definitely one product that would be very attractive in Cottage Grove. It's a little bit different financial framework, but again, that product has just proven to be extremely successful. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I guess one follow-up
go ahead.
question. What is the difference?
So in a cooperative situation, it's a little bit more of a collaborative situation in terms of community. I think people who move into, what we've seen is people who move into cooperatives tend to have a little bit more of a cohesive community feeling and environment. But the technical difference is that there's one blanket mortgage that is placed on the property, and then the residents buy shares, but they pay down that blanket mortgage. So they basically purchase a right to live in the unit, and then they pay down the blanket mortgage. But I think what is more attractive about it is really the idea that a condominium has a little bit different structure in terms of how expenses are assessed. And there's a bill before the legislature currently to somewhat restructure some regulations for homeowners associations. We're not sure exactly what will be the outcome for that. But I think that with some condominium developments, there's been a little bit more of a pushback in terms of how associations operate. And maybe it's just because the cooperative product is so new. But older cooperatives have continued to be pretty popular. And also usually in the cooperative, you can get in at a lower price. So you have a little bit more flexibility in how you want to pay monthly. So if you enter at a lower share price, then your monthly amount is higher, versus if you pay a higher amount to get in, then your monthly is lower. So there's more flexibility for the individual resident.
Okay. Any other members that would like, any questions at this point? Great information, by the way, and good questions from everybody. All right.
Okay.
Mary, thank you so much
much
for coming today and sharing the
Absolutely.
study.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
We appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep.
And I guess before I turn it over to Gretchen for doing the development update, I'll just mention it's interesting, some of for example, I do specifically remember the co-op. We did have to that point, we did have a developer that was at one point looking at doing a co-op, and I don't know what caused them to decide not to. I don't know when you get up there after G, if you wanted to mention, I don't know that we know. But we have looked at that as an option too, as an additional type of housing option here within the community. I believe it was going to be down in the Dunes site. I think it was with a previous developer though, I think, if I remember right. And then what we are looking at with the study, just so we know as the EDA, is our staff is then kind of relooking at our zoning to see, okay, do we need to expand or contract certain types of zoning based on the needs that appear that we're going to need to be focusing more attention on. I will just share that we just had a workshop as a council for everybody that knows the Tank property, which is just down the road here off of County Road 19. There is a developer that is in the process of, shared with us a concept plan of starting to build on the other side of County Road 19 and getting us some ideas. We did see a new housing type that's smaller, kind of, I'll just be frank, it kind of freaked me out a little bit, but I'm gonna go look at a couple other communities that have them. Super duper small, 2-story, I think it's kind of what you were talking about with the loft thing. Very tight though, development. But to your point, I think that's what gets the price down. The question is, you know, as I hear, and I'm sure my partner next to me here, when he was on the council, hear a lot, you know, every time we start crunching the lot sizes down, we don't hear from the people that are buying those lots because they're happy. But the existing residents of Cottage Grove are like, what are you doing? You got houses on top of houses. And so there is some challenges that, you know, for perception versus what I'll call it the upcoming generation is looking for, maybe not such big lots. And part of it I do think is a cost factor too, definitely so.
Can I mention one thing?
Absolutely.
So we are actually seeing some larger builders, both Lamar, Pulte, and David Weekly start to do single-family homes on lots as small as 65 feet wide. I mean, so that's a big push down from where we were seeing them before.
Yeah, and I know we have Emily in the background there. Emily, the one that they were proposing, do you know how wide those were? 28.
Well, 28 small.
It is very small. I mean, it looks, to me, it almost looked like a mobile home, but 2 or 3 stories tall. But yeah, that was what we're talking about when this one piece of it that they were looking at. Not the whole property, I want to be very clear. There was mixes and things, but that's the kind of stuff we're trying to figure out, you know, what fits, what doesn't fit, what are, you know, what are people buying? So it is interesting. This study is going to help us guide for the next, you know, 10 or so years, so. Okay. All right. Any other questions? No one? All right, thank you again for coming and sharing with us. All right, we'll move to C then, which is development update. G, you want to walk us through that? You pretty much have the rest. I'll just keep going down the
Yeah,
list.
we'll just run through it because they're all just updates and no action items are expected. I will say on the housing comment, having come up from Houston, Texas, Mary would know this, but the smaller lot, 3-story, sold like hotcakes. David Weekly built them everywhere in Houston, and it was a beautiful product for younger families to get into because they don't actually mind the stairs because they know what baby gates are. So, just so you know, as you're thinking about it, that really is good for the market. Okay, let's go over our updates today. So Beige Book, you can see from reading the report that employment increased slightly since the last report in the winter. Prices increased and wage growth was moderate. Consumer spending was flat. Construction activity was slow and commercial real estate activity remains relatively flat and residential real estate sales grew moderately. Manufacturing experienced some improvements with the tariffs. Now we don't exactly know what's going to happen this next round. Agricultural conditions were weak and oil and natural gas exploration remained unchanged. And minority and women-owned businesses continue to report lower sales and profits. So on the community development updates, Gerber Collision, the roofing material you can see from the photo and the exterior walls are installed. And they're going to start excavation for the interior slab and probably already have. Vang's Kitchen, we're very excited about this. Their interior improvements are complete and the final building inspection has been approved. Washington County has approved their final health inspection and their grand opening is this Saturday at 3:00 and the mayor will be present at that. And that, for many of you who know, is the former location of Ho King. It's going to be very exciting, and Mr. Vang is very happy to be opening. Taco Bell, you can see that from the picture, that the exterior signs are complete and they did some minor interior renovations. Your low zone water treatment plant, interior painting of multiple rooms is still ongoing. And again, as we speak, probably a lot of this is already done. Installation and painting of the process piping continues. HVAC ductwork is almost complete. And installation of the interior brick and platforms between the horizontal pre-treat tanks has been completed. Other projects, Llewellyn Apartments, which is Rohrer's, Park High School, and Buffalo Wild Wings Go, all of them have their plan reviews underway. And Emily is still here if you have any questions about the projects. And again, they're probably going along a lot faster than we have done right now. So, all right, on to the other updates. The property purchase and the hotel RFP. In December of '22, just as a reminder, HVS hotel study was completed. It did indicate that there was a need for a 90-room branded hotel in the city, and potentially the most ideal locations were 80th Street, Jamaica, and then also near the 73 acres adjacent to Walmart. You authorized an appraisal to be done in November. That was finished in early February. In December, while we were waiting on the appraisal, we started the hotel RFP. In March, we made an offer on the property after the council had an executive session, and we will meet again with the owner on Monday. So hopefully the offer will be accepted, but we'll see and we'll report back accordingly. And then in May, three of the members of the EDA board, the mayor, Mr. Kambata, and Vice President Olson are going to go to ICSC. So at that event, we will showcase the hotel RFP, assuming all goes as planned. And then we'll also showcase the other properties, including the 73 acres, the properties that are still available in the business park and others to developers at ICSC. So that's all ongoing, and happy to answer any questions about that.
All right, any questions so far on either the development or the hotel study?
Okay.
All right, there
Yellow
you go.
Tree project updates. This project, in August of 2024, the Community Development Department was contacted by the Yellow Tree Development for a proposed 164-unit multifamily project at Outwood D, Everwood. It's along East Point Douglas, and you can see on the map the circle. It's kind of near the Legends and behind Kohl's. It's a market rate complex. The city council held a workshop on March 19th to see about the project and to talk about an abatement that was requested. It's a challenging site. It's a nice project. It fits into the housing study needs. And they requested a tax abatement of 10 years and not to exceed $848,800. And that agreement, if it moves forward, would have also a look-back provision, just like TIF does. So overall, the council at the workshop thought it was a good product, understands the challenges of the development, and agreed that if it were to move forward, they were amenable to a tax abatement.
I'm gonna make a piggyback plug in there. The original, there was an article in the paper, I think it was the paper.
Yes.
That had a larger number out there just for the EDA.
Yes.
That is what they wanted.
Right.
We said, along with Ellers, who does all of our financials for the city, that they would not qualify for that higher dollar amount. So the amount of money that Ellers said that they should qualify for based on the true, I'll call it true hardships, was the $848,800. So if you see that out there, I think it was in the Business Journal or something. But yeah, Finance and Commerce, it was out there, and some people were asking, why are we giving 1.2 or 1.4 million? It's like, we're not. We're not doing that. So I just wanted to make that clear for our EDA here too, so that they're aware of that number, or what the real number is.
Thank you, President Bailey. Yes, it was 1.5 million, and it was 15 years. And we did actually correct the writer of the article and told them, so, okay, next time, if it moves forward and you update it, make sure you use the right numbers. And they just didn't know because that was in the original staff report. So, okay. All right. Dominion's certification of compliance, this comes before you every year. They're required to file an annual report to say that they're in compliance with their TIF plan and the development agreement that the EDA has with them. It requires that 80% of the building units be affordable senior housing, and then the other 20% remains affordable, but it's not necessarily just for seniors. And that's true of all of our TIF agreements. The ratio may be different, but you can allow others, disabled and people who are income challenged, to move in that are not seniors. In February, we received their certificate of compliance along with their actual tax credit report, and it shows all of the folks, the rent they pay, the size of their apartment, and then at what ratio are they, and they all remained at about 60% to 50%. So they are in compliance, and the only reason we don't put that in there is because it has a lot of private information in it. You just see the certificate saying they swear they are in compliance and have reported it correctly to both the state and Washington County. And happy to answer any questions about that.
Okay. I know she's whipping through these, which is fine. Any questions on that? EDA member Kambata.
If I recall correctly, was it last summer or summer before, there was some concern with residents of this complex regarding the rate of increase. And if I remember correctly, after looking through those rates of increase, they were within the specified amount, which I believe was under 12%. But at that time, rental rates across the metro were rising at, double-digit rates annually. And so while it was within the specification for keeping their TIF and their affordable housing dollars that they received for the project, those tenants were upset, and I think reasonably upset. But again, absent these TIF conditions, those rates could have come up much higher to try and meet market rates. So even though it's not a perfect system, I think this is still a good mechanism for the city to help develop affordable housing.
Absolutely, and those questions were addressed later on with the mayor and some of the folks from Dominion, because part of it was all of those extra fees that aren't covered by the HUD cap, right? Like for your parking space and for certain things related to maintenance.
Electric.
Yeah, and electric.
The surcharge on the surcharge of the surcharge.
Right.
Yeah.
So proud to say that the Mayor Bailey, president of the EDA, made some good headway with that. So hopefully it'll remain that way.
Good.
Okay, and then we're almost done. We just want to note that on May 13th, you will not have your regular EDA meeting because we don't have any action items, but you will have your June 10 meeting because we will have a number of action items for you to consider. This is the upcoming meetings calendar. Administrator Levitt wanted to especially point out that next Thursday is the volunteer banquet. So even though the RSVP has closed, if you will let staff, any one of us know if you've not said you were attending, and we'll make sure that we put you on the list.
Absolutely.
And
Sounds
other than
good.
that, there's a lot of ribbon cuttings coming up, so we'd like to see you there.
Yes, definitely. Looking forward to this Saturday at Vang's.
Oh, yeah, that'll be very exciting.
All right, just to be official, we do not have any public hearings, no other business, no workshops, no presentations. I will just ask, is there any other EDA member requests or comments that they want to make on there? All right, well, then I guess we will have one more motion in a second. Who would like to make the motion to adjourn? Councilmember
motion.
Kambata? All right, so Councilmember Kambata made the motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
EDA member.
Or EDA member? Thank you. See, I'm losing my mind here. Who would like to make the second?
Second that motion.
All right, second by EDA member Baptiste. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.